host Nova, and we're here at the New York Film Festival for the premiere of Nickel Boys. First of all, congratulations, opening night. How does this feel?
It's so great, man. I'm just happy to be able to celebrate this work.
For your character, what was one characteristic or trait that really stood out to you that you definitely wanted to portray on camera?
Oh man, I have no idea how to answer that without giving everything away. So I would just say that I think the writing was so profound and the technical filmmaking was so profound, and all of the performers got to really be a part of that. And so I think I just felt a great amount of pressure to not like come in and mess up a thing that was already going really well. That's how I felt. Yeah.
And being that this is such an important topic and historical importance that we acknowledge all of these issues in America that are still taking place to this day, did you yourself find any personal healing within telling the story?
Yeah, I don't know if healing is the right word. Certainly like a sense of pride in getting to be associated with something that is doing real work from an emotional place and also is really well done. Yeah.
And my last question, so we see the back of your head. For the most part, we don't actually see you. What kind of work, extra work, did you maybe put into your inflection to really get those emotions across?
I hope it works, but I think it was, for me, it was like a really technical process, you know? And so, yeah, getting to play with the rig and all that stuff, and then getting to, I'm not a cameraman, I'm not a cinematographer, and so working a lot with all of these folks to try and make sure that we were capturing what we needed to capture, and then also just again like trying not to mess it up.
Thank you so much. So first off, please tell me what characteristics in your character did you definitely want to get across on screen?
I wanted to get across that he's very, very smart, very intelligent, and someone that who is raised with the belief that if you are fighting for the right thing, he was raised with the belief that you can be anything that you want to be, and that if you are fighting for the right thing, things are going to work out. He's a very politically aware and, morally strong and sound person, and so those are just a few of the things that I hope to get across.
And my last question is, how did you find this story? Did you find it personally triggering at all or healing? What was your sort of experience with telling it?
My experience with telling it or watching it? Because both are a bit different. Yeah, my experience telling it was honestly really, it was one of the best experiences I've ever had on a set. There was so much joy on it, despite the subject matter. Working with people like RaMell and Aunjanue and Brandon, there was so much joy all over the set. The cast and crew were, they're all phenomenal. Yes, it is. And so there was a lot of joy in it, and we did have like a counselor on set in case things got, to that point, but I never felt triggered at any point. Now watching it, you can't help but be fully present, fully absorbed in what you are watching, and so it's kind of you are living through these people, and then when you reach that ending, it felt like everything kind of hit you like in the stomach all at once. And so again, I wasn't necessarily triggered by anything. I was just brought into this world and kind of had to deal with all the emotions that came with that after the fact.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Hello, what's your name?
Nova. Nice to meet you. So first of all, we don't see a lot of your face throughout the film. I need to know, as an actor, how did you put that in your mind and your headspace of how I'm going to portray certain emotions through my body?
When my face isn't on camera? Oh, well, I mean, it's generally not my body. It's either Jomo, who's the cinematographer, or RaMell would sometimes operate camera. Sometimes I'd have it on my body, but most of the time it would be them, and he would be trying to like live in the world of my body. And I would just be like kind of off camera over his shoulder to like remain present for Ethan and whoever I was on the scene with. And
did you find that as an actor at all challenging? And if so, how did you overcome that?
I mean, the off-camera part wasn't so challenging, but yeah, getting used to speaking to the camera and having to, be able to stare down a lens and still imbue it with life. It was, but I mean, we have such beautiful people, you know? So I got to play with Ethan. We would explore it beforehand and feel out like how we feel with each other in it. So then he would slide off, be very present still, and then I could stare down the lens and not stare down the lens anymore, but very much still, I don't know, feel his presence in there.
So this was a very like sensory overload movie in the best way. And as somebody who like even loves ASMR and textures and so forth, like I found such a deep connection to it. I was wondering, did it have the same effect on you?
You watch people like eat food and stuff? The first one, I've seen it twice now. Yeah, the first experience was, I feel like I missed, not that I missed it, but I wasn't so soaked into all the details. It was like kind of disorienting at first, and then it was draining. Yeah, I think, I don't know, I'm not sure why, but I felt very vulnerable after the first time. And there's like this feeling that I was sharing with RaMell recently that like, there's all these beautiful images, and I know there's so much more of them because I was there for some of it when they were shooting. So I'd like have this beautiful image presented to me, and I'd want to live in there, and it'd be taken away. And then, so I kept having this feeling of like this fleeting, like kind of, so I think it left me sad. But then the second time I saw it, yeah, I got to soak much more into like the world of like the sounds and yeah, I don't think it ever felt overwhelming, but that's, yeah, the sound. You said ASMR, yeah, that sound is,
the effects of their relationship across time.
yeah, the first time they get in a nickel and like it starts to, ooh, yeah.
Right, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing great. How are you?
So first of all, congratulations are in order. This is opening night. How are you feeling?
I feel great. Fantastic. I love things like this, you know?
This is such a pivotal and important story, and I would love to know, did you find any part of acting in this at all triggering? And if not, did you find healing within the story?
Yeah, I mean, not necessarily. I mean, it just made me tap into, like, you know, I'm playing this teacher that takes a liking to this kid, and I had a lot of teachers that changed my life, so I sort of just tapped into that, and it was like, I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for certain teachers that like singled me out and you know, made me feel special. So that really is what it was. It unlocked that part of me.
Tell me about this fashion and the makeup.
Well, this is Tom Brown. Yeah, and he always does things that are visually stunning. And I wanted to have that moment. And so that's what I'm wearing tonight. And yeah.
What was one characteristic about your specific character, specifically, that you wanted to get across? One specific trait to the audience?
I just think she loved her grandson so much. I'm not going to cry. And
where's that coming from? What is that?
Yeah, because I understand that this child is caught up in a system that he doesn't deserve to be in, and none of those children deserve to be in that. And the reality of those schools, they're still happening right now. So I'm hoping that this film brings attention to the travesty and the injustice of that.
And speaking of systemic oppression, did you find any sort of healing with telling the story?
Well, you know, not really. And I think that that's important because, you know, I've heard people say that the film can be hard to watch. And I think that that's how we should feel. We should feel that. We shouldn't come away from a film like this thinking, oh, yeah, I feel good afterwards.
We should feel uncomfortable.
We should feel uncomfortable. I think it's an excellent exercise that RaMell makes happen in this film. And those children, they didn't feel that way. So we shouldn't feel that way either until those families get the justice that they deserve.
Amazing quote. Thank you so much. So congratulations are in order. It's opening night. How are you feeling?
I am overwhelmed. It's just so overwhelming that the feelings can't exist. The nerves are frazzled. Frayed. They're frayed, frazzled nerves.
Frazzled in here.
Dazzled with the frazzle. It's wonderful.
Speaking of which, and that sort of overwhelmingness, the movie itself is very sensory overload in the best way. And I would love to know, what was your sort of personal connection to that?
Being a human being, You know, the sensory process, which is something that's really interesting, right? Especially in terms of Jim Crow and racism. Like, imagine being an 11-year-old, 8-year-old sensory being, like tactile, like grass and sun for the first time, and space and the moon and stars and caterpillars, and then like walking out into this world that is just so magnificent to be embodied in, and to be like poked in the stomach with a cane, and to be like harassed. It's like, it's unfathomable for me. I grew up in the suburbs. I grew up in the 2000s, in the late 1990s, and so that's a lot of what it's about in making this film. It's like, how do we bring what it means to be human to the tragedy of what the brains of humans can accomplish through things like racist systems, you know?
Speaking of systemic oppression, did you find at all any moments while filming this triggering? And if so, did you find any other moments healing at all?
I think that the whole process is triggering, but not triggering in the way in which something is traumatically triggering and it sends you into some sort of mode of paralysis. It's triggering in that you know you're onto something, right? Like, to me, like, you know, making Hale County this morning, this evening, having it on the big screen, you're like, oh, I'm onto something. Like, this is black people that I've never seen before, and I'm a black person. Same thing for this film. You're shooting, you're in the edit. Jomo and I are looking, and we're like, it instills almost an awe of the absence of images like this in history. And so that's kind of triggering, positively triggering, yeah.
And being that it is based off of a novel, I want to know what sort of aspect from the novel did you know that you specifically wanted to have in the film? You don't have to be, like, it doesn't have to be a specific scene or anything, or maybe just some sort of element, some sort of storytelling, something that you knew you wanted to incorporate.
Well, Colson's narrative is like, it's so granite strong and thorough. I think Jocelyn Barnes, who co-wrote with me, we tried to strip it down to its essence, at least in concept, just for the process of understanding exactly how we accomplished it. And to be really corny, like, love was like a main line. Like, the love from Hattie to Elwood. Elwood was then open to be in love and loved by King. Then that love transferred to Turner, and then that love transferred to Turner so that he could love himself, transferred to Millie and his relationship, and then he could come out as the sort of victim, you know? So it's strange how sometimes simple things are, you know? Yeah.
Thank you so much, and congratulations.
Thank you. Over here.
So first off, congratulations are in order. Opening night, how you feeling?
I am feeling amazing. Amazing. It truly is a dream.
So first of all, cinematography in itself is such an amazing craft. I need to talk about, like, the sensory overload in the best way. Can you talk about that? Like, do you have a background of loving ASMR just like me, or like loving the small details? Like, tell me where that passion came from.
You know, that's a great question. My mom always used to say that, you know, when something was happening, everyone would be looking, if a play was happening on stage, everyone would be looking at the main character, and Jomo would be looking at the other side of the shadows playing against the wall. I feel like I kind of always have had a fascination in the places that I feel like people aren't always looking, and the ways in which those small details can sometimes tell the extent of an entire story. Seeing someone fidget and keep picking their nails over having a really serious conversation, sometimes that can be at the heart of someone trying to emotionally express themselves in a way that seeing their face say something doesn't really get across. So I feel like I've just always kind of been fascinated in, exactly as you're saying, these textural pieces in the experience of being human. I just oftentimes feel like that's where my eye goes in those events. So kind of like trying to express that in cinema has always been a natural interest, I guess.
And we're going to piggyback off of this because we don't see the actors for most of the scenes. So tell me this POV, and I'm sure this was a very conscious thing, but I need to know the process. Like, what was your biggest direction to the actors? As in, like, how to pick up those, like, little moments, like you're tapping your fingers, how to showcase anxiety and so forth.
Totally.
When you don't have the face.
Absolutely. No, I think that was kind of one of the most fascinating aspects about this experience, was that as a cinematographer, I've shot actors most of my life, but being welcomed inside of the scene, you know, sharing a scene with them. If someone was being hugged, I was the person who was hugging them with the camera. And I think that kind of changes the dynamic of seeing a scene. There's a way in which I kind of had to be vulnerable with the camera, not just trying to capture vulnerability. And I think that dynamic was so different. But I feel so grateful for the amazing, intelligent, and brilliant cast of this movie kind of welcoming me into that space, welcoming me onto their set, onto their stage, was really an experience unlike anything else I've ever had in my career.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And I love the details. Yes. I'm such a sensory type of person, so it takes one to know one.